Avoided. The executioner's scythe moved along with Eileen's call. At this moment, his thoughts accelerated, and the world looked like slow motion. Kim Dokja thought, "What the hell is this?" I gritted my teeth and rushed towards Jang Hyung. There must be a difference between the 111th regression and the current regression, but there was no such development in the original second night. The executioners didn't receive any orders from the Duke, and should have wasted their second night after being unable to kill me. Kill everyone. Now the actions of the executioners were like those who had been playing this game for a long time. It was clear that someone had given them orders. I pushed Jang Hyung away while releasing Blade of Belief and receiving the executioner's scythe. The combat shock has made your story configuration incomplete. This situation was not very good. I couldn't fight now. The story fragment, Face of a Casanova who died from sexual relations, has been slightly damaged. Damn, my face! Fortunately, the executioner had no intention of fighting with me and immediately switched targets. I barely managed to sigh, but realized quickly that this was not a very good thing. Keep the revolutionary alive. Aha! Citizens screamed as they were cut by the executioner's scythes. No one was dead yet, but half a dozen people were already bleeding. Revolutionary. I bit my lips. Kim Dokja thought, was there a scheme he didn't know about? Or was the Duke already acting? The stories of waves of survival flowed quickly through Kim Dokja's head. Everyone gather this way. I can't protect you if you scatter. Kim Dokja judged. The Duke hadn't moved. It wouldn't have ended like this if the Duke had moved. The fourth wall was right. The industrial complex would have already been ruined if the Duke had moved. Quack! The damage to the people didn't reduce. The injuries from the executioner's scythes continued all over the place. There were over 10 wounded in an instant. The good news was that the enemies couldn't kill many citizens. The game's rules stated that each executioner could only kill one citizen per day. At least, for 3 days. Eileen shouted, Everyone fights against them. They can't use the execution without the mock. Some citizens armed themselves with weapons at Eileen's words, but the situation didn't easily improve. In the first place, only a few citizens could follow the movements of the executioners. Even then, they didn't last long. Quack! The fact that the people didn't know when the executioners would use the mark added to their fear. They could always use the mark, and some citizens would surely die. Furthermore, the Guardian was protecting me and couldn't protect them. Run! In the end, the ranks collapsed and the citizens started to scatter. No, don't go! Eileen urgently shouted, but the frightened citizens couldn't hear anything. The injured citizens groaned and seemed to be cursing towards empty air. Kim Dokja was quietly furious. I didn't know who did this, but... Save me. A wounded civilian crawled towards me. There were many people without good details. Some of them would die by the end of this night if they were unlucky. The same went for those who fled. This night would be remembered as more terrible than any other night in the industrial complex. If the damage gets bigger, then it will go according to their intentions. The citizens would no longer be able to help the revolution. They would once again follow the orders of the Duke, and Eileen's civil council would be isolated. I could not allow this to happen. Thus, I had to play a different hand. That moment, I took a short breath and called out to Eileen. This way! Kill me! Someone hiding behind a building was shouting. It was Mark. Over here! I'm the Guardian! Jang Hyung realized what was going on and shouted, Damn, pub owner, what are you doing? It was a hasty judgment. It was a valid, but bad judgment. I'm the Guardian! Kill me! As Eileen and Jang Hyung glanced at me, I was already running towards Mark. At almost the same time, the executioners were also running. Guardian. Mark's provocation worked well. The scattered executioners gathered in an instant. Kill the Guardian. I used Bookmark and Way of the Wind to quickly rush towards Mark. Mark's pale face was nearing. The exclusive skill character list is activated. Character list. Character, Mark Javier. Private attribute, Dimensional Mover. Hero, retired S-grade mercenary, rare. First class chef, rare. Constellation sponsor, none. Exclusive skills, cooking level 9, ingredients processing level 8, Old Justice level 4, sword dance level 9, private skill, level 1. This incarnation has a special role in the scenario. Some of the skills will be private due to the scenario penalty. In fact, unlike what I told Eileen, I couldn't know the exact position of a person using character list. However, I could see that someone had a special position and an unknown skill. It was a fleeting dream. The dimensional mover from the games planet, Mark Javier. He retired as a mercenary and became a chef after coming to the demon world. Every character in the scenario had their own reasons. Mark smiled at me as the scythe flew towards him. I hope you succeed, revolutionary. I didn't know much about his life. He was a supporting role among countless people who died in ways of survival. The Siswitz executioner has placed a mark of death on Mark Javier. Mark Javier has been identified as the scapegoat of the night. Ways of Survival had a huge 3,149 chapters. Some people probably thought this story was too long. They thought it was a long and boring story. But for Kim Dokja, 3,149 chapters was short. I always thought this. I wish that Ways of Survival was longer. I had read so many chapters, but I was still curious about Ways of Survival. Don't worry, you won't die. Thus, I would read a part I hadn't read from now on. Vicky, if I die, Mark shouted with a bit of embarrassment. Why are you so anxious to die? No one will die, at least not in my story. I blocked the size of the executioners and used a skill. The exclusive skill, Bookmark, is activated. The proficiency of Bookmark has increased, and a new slot has been enabled. I will place Knight of Revolution Mark Javier in the 6th slot. The character Mark Javier has been registered in the 6th slot. The number 6 bookmark is activated. Private skill level 1 is enabled. The scythe of an executioner headed to the neck of Mark, who had closed his eyes. You have temporarily acquired the position of guardian. However, my skill was a bit faster. Someone has used their vitality to protect Mark Javier. The executioner's scythe stopped 1 inch from Mark's neck. The scythe stopped like it was caught in a net. Mark knew the meaning of this and his eyes widened. The guardian was successful and the mark of death has been released. Of course, Mark wasn't the only one to feel amazed. Is there another guardian? It was a voice filled with disbelief. The executioners scattered into the darkness one by one. The executioners couldn't kill anyone, unlike their purpose. I wasn't satisfied, but it was okay. I sighed lightly and looked around where the survivors were staring at me. In particular, Jang Hayoung and Eileen were staring with shock. Judging from their expressions, it would be a long night. No one died tonight. As expected, Jang Hayoung and Mark didn't leave me alone. What are you really? What's your position? Are you actually a guardian? I would have suffered even more if Eileen wasn't taking care of the citizens. I shook my head and sighed. I told you, I'm a fake revolutionary. Thus, I can be a fake guardian. Explain it now. Just let it go. I will expose too much if I tell you more details. Don't you know how dangerous it is to disclose your information in a situation like this? Let's say I tell you the information. If you're kidnapped and reveal my information to the Duke, how do you think this revolution will end? In fact, this was an excuse that Yu Jung-hyuk frequently used when he found explaining was annoying. Now I was Yu Jung-hyuk, so I didn't mind saying it. I'm just Yu Jung-hyuk, remember that. Kim Dokja thought. He feels like he is actually becoming Yu Jung-hyuk. Shut up. I miss Kim Dokja, who speaks with honorifics. As I was playing with the fourth wall, the two men watched me with tired eyes and shook their heads. You're a really difficult person. A message was probably entering Yu Jung-hyuk's ears on Earth by now. Perhaps it was this message. Your story is being created in the 73rd Demon Realm. If he was smart, he would notice what was going on. However, it didn't matter. The atmosphere calmed down and I brought up the main subject. Let's talk about work. There's something that broke my expectations. There's a guy attacking using the rules of the game. I heard that this Duke Siswitz isn't a schemer. Do you think the Duke has moved directly? I don't think so. I think it's someone else. Still, tonight went well. Isn't it more favorable to us if there are two people who can use the mark of a guardian? Not necessarily. Those guys won't use the mark tomorrow. What? If it is hard to kill me, then they will try to hurt as many people as possible. If the mark wasn't used, the night wouldn't end until sun rose. Many people were already hurt tonight. We didn't win. We lost. Today, people learnt to fear the executioners again. Once tomorrow came, people's attitudes would be clear. People would be afraid of the Duke again, and be afraid of the revolution. The enemies wouldn't miss this gap. Mark's expression became darker, and he opened his mouth. Then what do we do now? We don't need to do anything. Maybe someone else will move first. I'd seen numerous revolutionary games and ways of survival. If things were like this, then the next development was certain. The second position will appear. The second? Yes, a position other than revolutionary guardian or executioner. I just said this when someone knocked on the door. It was Eileen. Revolutionary, someone has come to find you. I saw her strangely tense face and knew that the movements of the enemy had already begun. He says he's a spy.